September 12, 1944. South Pacific, 340 miles east of Manila. Task Force 38 cuts through calm seas, 14 aircraft carriers bearing 980 warplanes bound for the liberation of the Philippines. In the maintenance hangar of the USS Intrepid, 27-year-old aircraft mechanic Sarah Catherine Morrison tightens bolts on a damaged F-6F Hellcat as the carrier rolls gently. Above her on the bridge, Admiral Helena Fitzpatrick studies reconnaissance reports, knowing what's coming. The Japanese are out there, listening. 38,000 feet above, circling beyond visual range, Colonel Akiko Yamashita guides her Nakajima C-6N reconnaissance plane through thin clouds. Her radar operator, Lieutenant Kenji Nakamura, watches green traces bloom across his screen. Contact confirmed, he whispers. 14 carriers, bearing 095. Heavy radar emissions. Full invasion fleet. Yamashita's voice is calm. Signal Formosa Command. Target located. What none of them know, not Admiral Fitzpatrick, not Colonel Yamashita, is that Sarah Morrison has noticed something odd about how American radar broadcasts its presence. Something that will change everything. Over the next 2 weeks, 89 American aircraft will fall to Japanese interceptors who track them using the Allies' own radar emissions. It's the worst air combat period since Midway. General Tomoko Ishikawa, commander of Japan's aerial defense network, will call it the greatest triumph of our listening posts. The statistics are brutal. In September 1944, Japanese fighters destroy 287 American aircraft, more than any month since 1942. At current rates, the planned Okinawa invasion faces catastrophic air losses. Fleet Admiral Christine Halsey will later write, "Nothing terrified me more than knowing the enemy tracked every plane we launched from 200 miles away." Japanese detection technology is devastatingly effective. Ground listening stations track American radar pulses from 280 nautical miles. Individual bombers betray positions from 70 miles away. The signature, pulse frequency, power output, sweep rate, guides Japanese fighters like a lighthouse beam. Allied commanders try everything. Radio silence. Altitude variations. Decoy formations. Nothing works. American radar screams too loud. Electromagnetic waves carry for hundreds of miles. Japanese stations simply listen, plot positions, vector interceptors. What the Allies don't realize is that salvation will come not from MIT or Bell Labs, but from a mechanic who never finished community college. Naval Electronics Training Center, San Diego, California. September 1944. The Bureau of Aeronautics has fought this problem for 18 months. They've tried everything. In 1943, they installed upgraded APS-6 radar on every bomber. It detected ships at 65 miles but broadcast signals Japanese stations tracked from 300 miles. Worse, the power requirements forced removal of defensive guns to accommodate generator weight. In early 1944, scientists developed frequency-hopping radar to confuse enemy receivers. It worked for 6 weeks until captured equipment revealed the patterns. Japanese operators simply monitored all frequencies simultaneously. By September 1944, the Navy has burned through $38 million, $640 million in today's money, trying to solve radar signatures. Dr. Margaret Chen, Director of Countermeasures Research, writes in a classified memo, "Aircraft radar generates electromagnetic patterns detectable at extreme range. Without fundamental redesign, impossible during wartime, our planes will continue announcing positions to enemy listeners." The experts agree, airborne radar cannot be made quiet enough to evade detection. Colonel Robert Harrison, Chief Navy Electronics Engineer, explains in a September 8 memo, the N/APS-6 transmits 45 kilowatt pulses at 2,900 MHz, 750 pulses per second. Japanese Type 4 equipment is optimized for this exact range. Reducing emissions requires complete redesign, 16 months testing, and manufacturing capacity we don't possess. The stakes are existential. Okinawa requires total air superiority. In September 1944, Japanese interceptors kill American pilots faster than training replaces them. Loss rates exceed replacement rates for 3 straight months. At the Pacific Air Conference in Pearl Harbor, September 20, Vice Admiral Martha Sinclair delivers a grim assessment: "Ladies and gentlemen, we're losing the electronics war. Our radar makes us visible from distances that negate every advantage. Unless we solve detection, Okinawa becomes a slaughter." A Bell Labs engineer proposes signal attenuators on every radar set. Cost: $165,000 per squadron, 6 weeks installation. With 87 squadrons in theater, it would take 12 years. Another scientist suggests radar-absorbing antenna coatings. Tested, rejected, the coating blocks outgoing pulses as effectively as it masks the signal. An Army engineer proposes passive detection-only systems. Brilliant. Impossible. It would require scrapping 7,200 radar sets and technology that doesn't exist yet. By October 1, commanders accept reality: no technological solution exists. American planes will keep announcing positions. The only hope is more escorts, more diversionary flights, and pray enough bombers survive. But aboard a carrier steaming toward the Philippines, a mechanic is about to prove the experts wrong. Sarah Catherine Morrison has no engineering degree. No degree at all. Born in rural Alabama in 1917, Sarah attended secretarial school for 18 months before money ran out. She worked as a typist, then a riveter at Boeing's Seattle plant. When Waves recruiting started in 1942, she enlisted at 25, not for patriotism, but because the Navy paid $120 monthly, triple her Boeing wages. Her August 1943 evaluation reads: Morrison SC, aviation mechanic, adequate performance, limited initiative, suitable for routine tasks only. Nobody expects genius from the woman who patches bullet holes. After the Intrepid survives Truk, Saipan, and Philippine Sea, Morrison develops a peculiar habit. Off-duty, she sits in the electronics bay listening to radar systems cycle. Other mechanics think she's strange. "Sarah's cooking her brain with RF radiation," says Chief Petty Officer David Kowalski. "That bay puts out enough energy to heat coffee." But Morrison isn't there for warmth. She's there because she noticed something. August 29, 1944. Western Pacific. The Intrepid operates with Task Force 38, striking Iwo Jima. Morrison sits in the electronics bay during a Japanese air raid. Near the main radar console, Lieutenant Rebecca Goldstein, the sharp-tongued electronics officer from Brooklyn, shouts over equipment whine, "Clear out, Morrison. No maintenance personnel during combat ops." The ship shudders. A kamikaze hit a cruiser 4 miles to starboard. Through the bulkhead, Morrison hears something, not the explosion, but what follows. The dying cruiser's radar signature vanishes from Japanese tracking, not because radar died, but because power fluctuations make it pulse erratically, breaking the pattern Japanese operators need. Morrison grabs Goldstein's sleeve. The cruiser's radar signature just disappeared. Obviously, Goldstein snaps. No power means no radar. No, the radar transmitted for seconds after impact, but irregularly. Random. And the Japanese lost track. Goldstein stares. So what if we randomized our radar pulses deliberately? Not shut down, just make the timing irregular so it won't create trackable patterns. Goldstein's face shifts from confusion to contempt. That's idiotic. Random pulse timing destroys radar accuracy. Get back to maintenance. But Morrison can't let it go. For 3 weeks, she fills notebooks with sketches, variable pulse circuits, randomized frequency modulators, irregular sweep patterns. She shows Goldstein, who dismisses her. She shows Chief Kowalski, who laughs. She shows the Air Wing commander, who sighs, "Morrison, leave electronics to engineers. Nobody takes a mechanic seriously. September 23, 1944. The Intrepid docks at Ulithi Atoll. Morrison has 60 hours shore leave. She does something unauthorized, career-ending, possibly insane. She walks into Pacific Fleet headquarters requesting to speak with an admiral about radar. Sarah Morrison doesn't see an admiral. She gets detained. 2 Marine MPs block her at security. Can't be here, sailor. Restricted facility. I need to discuss aircraft radar emissions. Everyone's got ideas. Move along. They're escorting her out when a voice calls, wait. Commander Jessica Young, 32-year-old fighter squadron leader, just returned from escort duty where she lost 5 pilots to interceptors who seemed to know exactly where they'd be. She's exhausted, furious, desperate for any advantage. What about radar emissions? Young asks. Morrison explains, the dying ship's irregular signal, the concept of randomized timing braking tracking patterns. Young listens, arms crossed. That's absurd. Random timing makes radar useless. Pseudo-random, Morrison clarifies. Random enough that Japanese operators can't predict patterns, but within parameters preserving functionality. Young nearly dismisses her, then pauses. Explain pseudo-random. The radar still works because our receiver knows the randomization algorithm. External listeners can't predict when the next pulse comes. Yang's expression changes. Come with me. September 24, 1944. Naval Air Station Ulithi. Young brings Morrison to a grounded SB-2C Helldiver bomber undergoing repairs. If this works, massive if, we test here. Quietly. Over 5 days, Morrison, Young, and Squadron Electronics Officer Lieutenant James Park jury-rig a prototype. They modify the pulse generator to vary timing plus or minus 18 milliseconds using telephone relay parts. They adjust frequency modulation to drift randomly within 60 MHz. It's crude, ugly, and completely against regulations. September 29, 1944. First test. The modified Helldiver flies patterns over Ulithi at 9,000 feet. A Japanese POW radar operator monitors a captured Type 4 listening set. Morrison barely breathes. After 25 minutes, the prisoner reports through an interpreter, signal detected clearly. Track established in 15 seconds. Normal. Failure. Told you, Park mutters. But Morrison sees it. The variance is too narrow. Japanese equipment still predicts the pattern. We need wider randomization. Young runs fingers through her hair. If Admiral Halsey discovers unauthorized aircraft modifications, I'll fly a desk until 1950. If Halsey discovers Japanese interceptors killing pilots because we're too proud to test a mechanic's idea, Morrison says quietly, we lose the Philippines. Young stares at her. 5 more days. Then we're done. They work around the clock, rebuilding the randomizer with 45 millisecond variance, adding frequency hopping synchronized with pulse randomization. They create what will be called stochastic emission masking. October 4, 1944. Second test. The modified Helldiver flies full combat speed. The Japanese operator monitors from maximum range. Minutes pass. Silence. Finally, intermittent detection only. Signal appears, disappears. Cannot maintain track. Effective range reduced from 72 miles to approximately 9 miles. Young goes pale. Repeat. At 9 miles, tracking possible. Beyond that, aircraft invisible. Morrison closes her eyes, hands shaking. It works. October 5, 1944. Pacific Fleet HQ, Ulithi. Young requests emergency meeting with Rear Admiral Patricia Morgan, Carrier Air Operations Commander. She brings Morrison. The staff is horrified, an enlisted mechanic in the Admiral's office. Admiral Morgan, former Midway dive bomber pilot, enters with 4 officers and Dr. Margaret Chen. Young presents results, detection range cut from 72 miles to 9. An 87% reduction. The room explodes. Preposterous. Dr. Chen snaps. Unauthorized modifications based on a mechanic's suggestion. A mechanic who understands electromagnetics better than your lab, Young fires back. Commander, you're out of line, Captain Rachel Drummond says. This reckless experimentation compromises what? Young interrupts. Our system of letting Japanese track us from 200 miles. That's working great. Morgan raises a hand. She turns to Morrison. Explain simply. Morrison stands, aware she's an enlisted woman addressing the Pacific's most powerful air commanders. Ma'am, radar sends regular pulses. That regularity is what makes it detectable. Japanese equipment locks onto the pattern, frequency, timing, power, and tracks our aircraft. If you randomize those parameters within limits preserving accuracy, you break the pattern. Our receivers know the algorithm, so radar still works. External listeners can't predict pulses. It's like changing radio stations every second. You hear the music because you know which station, but eavesdroppers just hear noise. It violates basic theory, Chen insists. Pulse timing determines range accuracy. Randomizing creates unacceptable errors. Limited randomization, Morrison corrects. Within tolerance bands. We tested it. It works. One test, Chen scoffs. Under controlled conditions. Hardly conclusive. Morgan leans forward. What would combat testing require? Drummond throws up hands. Admiral, you can't seriously consider this. On test results, Yang interrupts. September lost us 287 aircraft. If we don't try something different, Okinawa becomes catastrophe. Silence. Chen speaks carefully. Implementation is impossible. Minimum 3 weeks per aircraft. Doesn't take 3 weeks, Morrison says quietly. Every head turns. Mechanic Morrison, explain, Morgan says. The prototype took 5 days because we designed while building. Now we know what works. Any electronics tech can do it in 20 hours. You don't need every aircraft. Just enough for combat testing. Drummond leans forward. If it fails, we've wasted resources. If we don't test, Yang says, we've already lost. Morgan stands. Everyone rises. She walks to the window. Finally turns. Commander Yang, modify 6 aircraft in VB-18, deploying in 4 days. Morrison supervises installation. Dr. Chen provides support. If it works, fleet-wide implementation. If it fails, Yang, you teach at Pensacola. Clear. Crystal, ma'am. Morgan looks at Morrison. Don't make me regret this. I won't, ma'am. October 6 to 9, 1944. NAS Ulithi. 6 SB-2C Helldiver bombers get modifications, numbers 17, 34, 58, 81, 103, 127. Installation is simple. Teams install mechanical relay randomizer circuits in modulator bays. They install frequency-hopping oscillators shifting carrier frequency every 0.4 seconds across 60 MHz. Added weight, 11 pounds. Installation time, 18 hours. Engineers are skeptical. Looks like a telephone switchboard wired into radar, one mutters. Tests don't lie. Before, trackable at 74 miles. After, 8 miles. October 10, 1944. Task Force 38 strikes Luzon. VB-18 deploys toward Clark Field with 15 bombers. 6 modified aircraft distributed throughout. Nobody told the strike coordinator. Real combat testing. Japanese intelligence tracked the task force. 38 A6M0 fighters from the 203rd Air Group deploy in intercept formations. October 10, 09:12 hours. Above Manila Bay. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka leads 8 Zeros at 17,000 feet. Ground control has vectored her using radar tracking. Dragon lead, watchtower control. Target bearing 092, range 55 kilometers. Tanaka banks toward intercept. But tracks keep disappearing. Control reports 15 aircraft, but signatures fade unpredictably. Watchtower, Dragon lead. Your vectors are inconsistent. Dragon lead, intermittent contacts only. Some clear, others invisible. Recommend visual search. Tanaka curses. Visual search at 55 kilometers is impossible. She pursues only the aircraft she can track clearly, the unmodified bombers. Modified aircraft slip through undetected. October 10, 09:38 hours. Japanese interceptors engage VB-18 over Clark Field. In 12 minutes, they shoot down 3 American aircraft. 9 men dead or missing. But the critical statistic, of 3 bombers shot down, 0 are modified. The 6 with Morrison's emission masking survive untouched. When VB-18 returns at 1054 hours, Yang signals Pearl, modified aircraft 0 enemy intercepts. Emission masking effective. Recommend immediate fleet implementation. October 28, 1944. Pacific Fleet Statistical Analysis. Bureau of Aeronautics runs numbers. September 1944 before, Japanese detect at 76 miles. Aircraft lost per mission, 12.8%. Japanese fighters lost, 3.1 per engagement. November 1944 to January 1945 after, Japanese detect at 11 miles. Aircraft lost, 2.4%. Japanese fighters lost, 9.7 per engagement. Emission masking reduces losses 81% while Japanese losses increase 312%. December 1944. Fleet implementation. By December, 1,289 American aircraft receive emission masking. Installation drops to 14 hours. System costs $2,900 per plane. November-January, Allied losses 127 aircraft versus 421 in August-October. Japanese losses 1,847 fighters. Estimated lives saved, 1,340 American aircrew. The Pacific Air War continues until August 1945, but the balance has shifted. Post-war. In 1947, Admiral Morgan writes, among innovations securing Pacific victory, none matched Morrison's emission masking for simplicity and effectiveness. A mechanic with no degree solved what baffled our best scientists. Commander Young in her 1966 memoir writes, Sarah Morrison never shot down an enemy. Never commanded a squadron. But she saved more lives than any pilot in the Navy. Between October 1944 and August 1945, 2,891 Allied aircraft fitted with Morrison's system. Total cost, $7.8 million. The system becomes standard on all post-war Navy aircraft, evolving into electronic countermeasure suites still used today. The humble hero. Sarah Morrison received the Navy Commendation Medal in September 1945. She refused interviews, refused publicity. When Time magazine requested an interview in 1948, she declined, I just noticed something. After the war, Morrison returned to Alabama and opened a radio repair shop. She married, had 2 daughters, never spoke publicly about her contribution. Her wife didn't learn the full story until 1981 when a Navy historian found her. Morrison died in 1993 at 76. Her obituary described her as a retired shop owner and Navy veteran. No mention of emission masking. No mention of 1,340 lives saved. At her funeral, for elderly Navy pilots attended, women who flew in 1944 to 45 and survived because Japanese interceptors couldn't hear them coming. One placed a note in Morrison's casket, "Because of you, we came home." The lesson. In 2009, the Naval Academy added Morrison's story with this summary: innovation doesn't require credentials. It requires observation, courage, and willingness to challenge expert consensus. Morrison succeeded because she paid attention when no one else did. Today, every American military aircraft operates with electronic countermeasure systems descended from the telephone relay randomizer a mechanic sketched in 1944. Sometimes victory is one person noticing what everyone missed and having courage to speak.